Okay, so I want to cover a little bit of positive cryptocurrency news, Bitcoin mass adoption type news. And by the way, I've thought about creating a channel on my website and just covering Bitcoin mass adoption news. If you would be interested in being able to see me look for, follow, bring to your attention positive news that indicate future mass adoption for cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, please let me know down in the comment. If you want to see me cover more positive news in the cryptocurrency space, just please let me know. All right, so first up, here's one. Crypto valuations will increase, says Circle founder. Circle's an exchange similar to Coinbase. Let's just take a look at what he says. We're not going to watch the whole video, just the first little bit here.
Something that analysts in this space look at is, the kind of fundamental valuation metrics in this space are really focused on the actual usage of these platforms. Now, obviously, there are hundreds of different crypto assets. There are sort of flagship crypto networks like the Bitcoin network, the Ethereum network. And if you look at sort of the R-square correlations between core usage and value, they're actually highly, highly correlated. And what we're seeing actually is both for Bitcoin and for Ethereum in particular, there is some decoupling there, which is to suggest that both of those assets have been oversold. And so in the case of Bitcoin, maybe moderately oversold. In the case of Ethereum, potentially pretty significantly oversold. So the amount of usage remains very high. The amount of people deploying smart contracts.
The other piece of this, though.
All right, so he talks about, and you can go watch this full video, but he's basically saying, hey, there's far more people using these products than the value indicates. So therefore, the value will go up because at some point it's going to correct itself. So that's really positive news, in my opinion. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. Here's another piece of news that I find extraordinarily fascinating. The current new acting chief of staff says that Bitcoin is good. It's not able to be manipulated by any government, is what he says. In 2016, Mulvaney reported, he said that the Federal Reserve effectively devalued the dollar and emphasized that the exercise of such control is not possible with a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin that is not manipulatable by any government. I think this is really good, and if you've been following my channel, by the way, a lot of times people are slow to realize that our government can manipulate our own dollar and that they are doing it. When people first hear that, it kind of shocks them, it freaks them out. Right there, he says it point blank, though, that's exactly what is happening, and that is what, can't happen. So this is fascinating. Will it ultimately have any impact in his position as chief of staff? I don't know. But hopefully his opinions tend to spread. He will be in a powerful place actually advising the president and others that may be in the room. So if he continues to hold to these opinions and these beliefs, I believe that could be overall really positive for Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. Now, I want to cover something from another YouTuber, really popular channel, Crypto Fiend. Has a great channel, lots of subscribers. You can come listen to what he has to say. But I think he says something in this video that I think is unfortunate, and I think it shows a fundamental breakdown. By the way, this is one of the reasons why I started my channel, because I felt that like there were so many YouTubers that were excited about this space, but they were missing the mark. And meaning they were excited about the technology, but so many times they just fundamentally missed the mark on the basis of why cryptocurrency even exists in the first place in part. All right, so let's take a listen for a moment and I'll explain more. Now, by the way, he's referring to this news story. He's got some great news stories in this video, but he's referring to this one in particular. And here's what he has to say about it.
The view of government officials. And I don't mean to be that sort of naysayer of the government in the U.S., but our government is made up of an older generation, and no offense to that, but they don't really fully understand technology in this day and era. They don't understand the new things around them. They're still stuck to the old paper and pen, the traditional wired telephone, all that sort of stuff. And again, I don't mean to insult anyone, but realistically, when you have people like that in office making decisions for everyone, especially making decisions for the millennials and the X generation that are going to this is going to have a great effect on them in the future, it's going to cause a big issue. And a perfect example is I watched the Google.
Do you want to know what $182 billion looks like?
Google hearing where the Google CEO sat down and discussed privacy settings and all that sort of stuff. And it was pretty crazy to hear the questions that the court was asking the Google CEO. I mean, they were asking ridiculous questions that are just common sense that Google does not do what Google does. So I think that was a really good example. Same with Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg when he had the same situation. It's a real good example to show that the government is kind of out of date. The government officials are kind of out of date when it comes to new technology. So hopefully they can.
Okay, so this is a common narrative that is totally, it's just not accurate. There's this belief among especially younger YouTubers that talk about things like, oh, the government's got to get with the times because they're older, therefore they don't get it. Has anybody ever looked at how old Bill Gates is? Has anybody ever looked up how old Steve Jobs was? I mean, have you looked at how old the CEO, founders, and many of the board of directors are of like Google? And so there's this misbelief that the older generation misses it, and I think there's several reasons for this. I think there's a little bit of a superiority complex. They're older, they don't get us as a younger generation. I mean, a lot of the OGs in Bitcoin are much older people. I think that it's far more. There's a reason that they don't get it. And I think it's that there's conflicts of interest in the government agenda and cryptocurrency's fundamental purpose. The whole fundamental purpose of cryptocurrency was to go around regulation, to avoid being manipulated, as is discussed right here. By the way, this guy's not super young. But there's this whole idea that cryptocurrency should not have to, Bitcoin, you don't have to deal with the banking systems. You don't have to deal with the old financial systems. And both of those systems carry a tremendous amount of influence in Washington. That's the number one reason why politicians don't get it. It's not that they're not capable of learning. It's not that they're not smart people. It's that they're not going to learn, or they're not going to learn the way you and I want them to learn, because there are a lot of mainstream economists that work for the banking systems, that work for the financial systems, that are constantly talking to Congress privately and even publicly, even on Twitter and things like that, where they're constantly devaluing cryptocurrencies, constantly talking about the negatives, focusing on the negatives. That's the number one issue. So it's not that they're just old. I mean, it's far more important that you understand that. It's not that they're old. Sure, older people aren't always up with the cutting edge technologies. I get it. But Congress in general have relatively high IQs in general. I mean, these are average to above average IQ type people. They can learn things. They can understand things. Cryptocurrency's been around long enough. There are very few, but there are a few of them that understand it. However, it does not align with the major money in Washington, and the major money is the financial interest and the banking interest, and those two are strongly correlated. That's why cryptocurrency and governments and Congress, they have some authority over monetary policy, and they have some authority over spending. If Bitcoin existed, for example, as a world currency, or even if it was adopted by, let's just say it was only adopted by the US alone, do you understand that Congress could not vote for the spending bills that help keep them in office? Let's just take, for example, the healthcare bill, the Affordable Care Act. There's news stories that show that the Affordable Care Act is becoming popular. Of course it's becoming popular because people are currently getting health care and they're paying less for it. But who's picking up the tab? The federal government. There's a reason that we're in so much debt. Our government literally cannot afford to pay it, but they are right now. And they'll probably continue to be for the foreseeable future. So of course, citizens like when the government pays for things. Citizens like when the government subsidizes things. Citizens like when the government has, programs like Medicare, Medicaid, etc. However, if politicians could not vote for those programs because there simply was no funding for it, because they couldn't print more dollars, that would become a problem for the politicians. I'm just going to let you marinate on that, and I'll just leave it right there. Tell me what you think down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching.